Sarasota and Bradenton, known as a retirement destination in Florida, but is it a good place for young people going to school? On today's video, we're going to talk about the options that exist in this metropolitan area for young people. Now, typically cities like Ocala, Gainesville, and Tallahassee are known as college towns in the state of Florida that more typically are going to be associated with college kids. But on today's video, you're going to learn a little bit about this metropolitan area and some of the great options that exist here, and bring your kids back with a good education and no bed bugs and ticks like they will in Gainesville, Ocala, and Tallahassee. You want your kids to come back with a good education, but you don't want them to come back covered in tattoos and vaping. So if you want to give your kids a little bit more of a classy place to study where they can get a good education, then the Sarasota and Bradenton area really has a lot to offer. Just 25 minutes from the outskirts of Bradenton is Eckerd College. It's actually at the southern tip of St. Petersburg, right across from the Skyway Bridge. Specializing in marine studies, if your kids want to grow up to be marine biologists or work for the Coast Guard or anything that has to do with the water, this is the place to be. It's a beautiful campus and it's kind of quiet. It's on the southern tip of St. Petersburg, so it's really quiet here. It's not like in the middle of a city. It's kind of surrounded by nature itself. Now, the facility itself, it's kind of older and outdated, and there's a lot of building going on here. Like, some of the classrooms are literally trailers, so it isn't the fanciest accommodation, but hey, you're surrounded by water. You're at the mouth of Tampa Bay on the northern tip. Now, St. Petersburg is absolutely one of the most expensive cities to live in Florida right now. Only Miami, Hialeah, and Pembroke Pines have a worse income to cost of living ratio. Most people going to college are going to want to live very close to the campus, but I would imagine that some kids are taking advantage of the fact that from Palmetto or Parrish, you can reasonably be here within less than 25 minutes. I pick up students here on Uber all the time, and most of them live nowhere near the school. It's just far too expensive because St. Petersburg, like I said, is an expensive city. And most of the young adults that I pick up here are really excited about their future. They're really excited about the field that they're studying, and they seem optimistic about the education they're getting and its real-life application. And for those who live at the campus, I hear that literally every single dorm has aquariums in it. So these are kids that are just really into what they're studying. In the southwest corner of Bradenton, you have IMG Academy, one of the best schools for athletes anywhere in the United States. And it's even a school for international students. Now, Bradenton isn't exactly the fanciest location, but it does have great beaches. And this particular campus gives your kids the opportunity to learn in a Florida beach town that has somewhat of a dangerous and ghetto reputation. Now, usually when I get Uber passengers and they get in and I'm like, so what do you do? And they're like, well, I'm a G. I'm like I am G like the academy, or I'm a G like you from the streets. Because literally, if you're getting people in Bradenton that are young, they're either a gangster from the streets or they're going to IMG Academy. So it's either one or the other. It's either I am a G from the streets or I am a G from the academy. So that's the reality of this city. Now, don't let that scare you, because at the end of the day, I feel like most people that come here to study, they're not from Bradenton, so they're not going to get caught in the mix. And honestly, it's not like Tallahassee and Gainesville are that much more wholesome than Bradenton. And with the increase of rents evenly throughout the state, you may actually consider other options. You know, typically those were cities that kids went to because they were affordable. But now with the increased cost of living evenly everywhere, you might as well just pay a few $100s more a month and end up in a city like Bradenton where you have better beaches, or beaches at all, because after all, Tallahassee, Gainesville, and Ocala, none of those cities have beaches. So you might as well pay a few $100s more and get something, well, nicer. Without a doubt, one of the downsides of IMG is literally the roughness of some of the neighborhoods in the vicinity. I remember a while back I had this passenger on Uber. It's a young girl that moved from like California or somewhere on the West Coast. And she was like, is this like a dangerous neighborhood? And she was like somewhere off in like 63rd Avenue. I'm like, yeah, this is not exactly the type of place you want to rent if you're going here. And she asked me if it was safe for a female to walk around here at night. And I like literally had to hold back from laughing or crying because, to be honest, no, it's not a safe place for women to walk around at night. So it isn't exactly the most wholesome place for young kids, but I can tell you that while Uber driving, I have seen kids here from Mississippi, Australia, New Zealand, like Koreans, like from every part of the world. When people from all over the world are sending their kids to this location, there's a reason for it. There's also a State College of Florida nearby. I mean, overall, the biggest thing to look out here is to make sure that you end up like in a nicer neighborhood of Bradenton and not in the slums of Bradenton, because a lot of kids actually move here and then they end up in some pretty freaking scary neighborhoods. So I made a map to just kind of show you guys what parts around here you probably don't want to end up in. Do the best to avoid the areas in red and stick to the areas in green, and you should be okay in Bradenton. Now, personally, I've never really had a serious problem on the streets of Bradenton, and I'm out here all the time, Uber driving at 3 in the morning, eating at food trucks, and I don't have a problem. But hey, if your sensibilities are different, it may not be ideal for you. And a lot of the kids that I meet actually dive into the street culture out here, and they really love the nightlife and the food trucks and all the things that are like in the city. So now Sarasota has an interesting mix of colleges. You have the Ringling Museum of Art if your kids are liberals, and if they want to go the other extreme and join the Klan, then there's New College. If they're going to learn the liberal arts school, they're at least going to have to paint their hair blue and live with somebody that's the same gender. And if they're going to go to New College, then they're at least going to have to join a hate group. And then there's a few other smaller colleges in the Sarasota area. Now, the benefit of putting your kids in Sarasota is, for one, it's a really nice, clean, and safe city. The homicide rate here is something like almost half the state average, or just a little bit more than that. So for being a city, it's extraordinarily safe. The only danger here is getting caught in a protest, a peaceful one at that. It's very common. It seems like the type of city where there's always something to complain or protest about. But other than that, Sarasota really is a clean and wholesome city. And your rents are going to be a little bit higher than the cities we've mentioned before, but Sarasota is really worth it. So if you want to send your kids off to college and make sure they don't come back with tattoos, vaping, and maybe a little bit of left or right-wing radicalization, then this is the place. I can't even say something like that right out. It didn't come off the tip of my tongue right. But you get what I'm saying. Sarasota really is a clean and elegant city, and there are a lot of schools here. From what I've heard, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, if you're sending your kids to the liberal arts school and they are gender... I don't even know how to say this. If they're gender... victim or disabled, I don't know what the crap you call it. Basically, if they're playing with the same team, okay, then you could actually get a scholarship there. And I have actually met kids that go there and pretend like they're on the other team with they're the same team. I don't know what you call it, but you get what I'm saying. They actually pretend like they're gonna dye their hair blue and stuff like that, just so they can get like free education. So from what I understand, that's one place where if you're if you're just a little off to the side there, you can get free education. And people get very creative about getting their education on at all means, even if it means pretend. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what everybody tells me. It's hard to believe that in the state of Florida something like that exists, but that's what everybody tells me. Now, with New College, a lot of drama here. So I think the president, whoever's in charge of this college, is hand-selected by Florida's governor. Now, the guy that was there before was hand-selected by Florida's governor, and this guy actually lost his job as the spokesperson for the governor because during COVID, he made some insensitive comments about people who perished from COVID. So what do you do with somebody that has that type of ideology? Well, you put him on top of a school. Where turns out that he has several cases pending in Manatee and Sarasota County for indecent bushwhacking. And it's not one charge or two. In fact, it's so many charges that his family came out and made a statement saying, like, they're not even denying it. Like, there's so many charges. Basically, he ambushed a lady that was jogging here in Lakewood Ranch. Kind of disturbing. He also got in trouble at a Marshall's, I think it was, or one of the shopping stores down there by University Mall. Basically, the guy's got charges in Sarasota and in Manatee County for doing somewhat the same ordeal. The family's not even denying it. They're just saying the guy has some mental health problems. But, well, anyways, that's kind of who you have on the Board of Administration there. So, go figure. Hand selected by Florida's governor. So, what a mess. Now, from what I understand, there's a huge rivalry between Bradenton and Sarasota in the high schools. But those kids are going off to prison, not to college, so they probably won't be in the same environment as your kids. Let me just make that distinction very clear that the kids that are from here are hopefully not going to be mixing with the kids that are coming here to study. There's just two totally different groups of kids from what I understand. And the city of Sarasota has a lot of great benefits. So I know the way I put it out doesn't sound attractive, but I'm just giving you the raw deal. I mean, I guess the biggest win if you're sending kids to Sarasota is that you're sending them to kind of a more sheltered place. At least from a crime and safety perspective, it's kind of hard to get in trouble in Sarasota. Now, a lot of the youth here really isn't doing much with their lives. I mean, by 22, most of them are just drinking and pub hopping, and keep your kids away from golf gate estates on there on the south side of the city. I mean, the kids that hang out there are nothing more than just drunks. Type of kids you have to kick out of your Uber just about every weekend. So again, there's just a real distinction between the local kids and what your kids that are going there to study for a whole different reason. A lot of the kids that are hip and cool, they want to live east of 75 in Lakewood Ranch. So on the Fruitville exit, there's a bunch of like brand new quote unquote luxury apartments in Lakewood Ranch. So a lot of kids live there. Sarasota is kind of not so much, you kind of need a car to get around the city for the most part, unless you're going to those colleges that are near downtown, and there a lot of kids actually walk or Uber back and forth. Now, the area just north of downtown Sarasota is a little rough. I mean, you got spots like Newtown and all that area up there. It's just like between downtown and the airport, it's kind of rough, but it's changed a lot and it's improving as far as safety, so it isn't as bad as it used to be. Growing up in Southwest Florida, most of the kids that I went to school with eventually whether went to Orlando or Tallahassee or Gainesville or Ocala, and they left Southwest Florida. I think one of the hardest things about growing up down here is that all your friends eventually moved somewhere else because they couldn't afford it. So if you're bringing your kids to these schools here in Sarasota or Bradenton, I think there are some advantages. I mean, this is a really safe area overall. Sure, there's bad pockets like anywhere this size. Bradenton is definitely a really druggy and homeless type city, but of course your kids are going there to study, not to join a sidewalk homeless gang, so hopefully that's not what they're drawn to. The beaches here are a great distraction. I believe that if I were going to study somewhere, I think it's a much more healthy, conductive, and wholesome environment than the other towns in Florida that are kind of known for education. I feel like every time I go to those towns, the amount of homelessness and just, I wouldn't say youth delinquency, but definitely it doesn't feel wholesome. It feels kind of trashy. It feels kind of like more reckless. So if you want to give your kids kind of a better, more level-minded place to go to school, then this is definitely a much more wholesome option. And also, if they wanted to stay in Florida, then they're staying in a good area. Like, I don't really see kids staying in Tallahassee, Gainesville, or Ocala. Like, as soon as they finish their schooling, they probably want to get the crap up out of there. And that's probably the case for a lot of kids. But if they wanted to stay in this area, I think they'd have better opportunities with cities like Tampa, St. Pete, Bradenton, and Sarasota, all within about a 1 hour drive of each other at most. So in the past, this area really hasn't been known for education, but I feel like it's starting to become more of a thing here in Florida, particularly with foreign students. Then way out in the suburbs, in the outskirts of Lakewood Ranch, there's LECOM, so there's like nursing and dental schools. These are going to attract a lot of Asian students, so there's kind of like a small Asian community out there in Lakewood Ranch attracted to these areas. So much so that the apartments directly adjacent to these areas are usually going to have higher rents because there's so many students living there. Now, 3 to 4 years ago when I moved to Lakewood Ranch, that wasn't the case. It was mostly just like older retired people, but now most of those apartments are going to be students. So this is the real dynamic of education in this metropolitan area. I think, personally, from my perspective, it's a lot better than some of the other cities because this area, both Bradenton and Sarasota, have generally safer crime analytics. And I mean crime analytics, I'm talking about homicides and violent crimes, like the absolute worst of the worst. This area is below the state average, and Florida is overall a fairly safe state. And there is nightlife here. I mean, there's food trucks all over that are open late. I've never really had a problem out there. Downtown Sarasota during the wintertime gets packed and busy, so it has good nightlife, but it's a clean nightlife. It's a lot safer than Tampa or Miami or Orlando, so it's big enough to have things to do. Don't forget that the Moat Aquarium is going to be opening in Sarasota soon, and that Sarasota also has a lot of venues for arts. Depending on traffic, 45 minutes to an hour, you're in downtown Tampa, where there's a huge sports. I mean, from football to hockey. I mean, there's so much going on in Tampa when it comes to sports, and that's all accessible from here. All that also includes venues that have concerts, so it is a fairly good place to get your education on. And while it isn't the most popular destination for students, if you are a student, this should just give you a kind of a summary or an idea of what it is to learn over here. It's definitely a different and unique experience. It's a fairly good middle ground between the expensive places like Tampa and Miami and the absolute crap holes like Ocala, Gainesville, and Tallahassee. It's kind of like a nice middle ground where you can't exactly get Miami, but you can at least get Sarasota. So it's a good middle ground option that could work for you. You'll have opportunities to go to places like Anna Marie Island, Siesta Key, Bradenton Beach, Coquina Beach. These are like world-renowned beach destinations. Spring break can be kind of big here, especially in places like Siesta Key. So the place has a good vibe. And because of the coastal and somewhat expensive nature of this area, your kids are going to be rubbing elbows with some pretty big wigs, which might open up good opportunities for them in the future. So it's very different than sending your kids to one of those dead-end college towns like Tallahassee or Gainesville. You put them here, maybe they'll have a chance to just kind of be around a better environment, better people, and perhaps that could help procure a better dang future for your kids or for yourself. If you have gone to any of these academies or colleges, whatever the crap they're called, let me know in the comment section what your experience was. For me, I think IMG is kind of the most profound out of all people I meet, because definitely these are kids whose parents have a lot of money and they're putting them in a very special school so they can be very awesome athletes. And personally, I've always liked marine biology, so every time I pick up students there at that Eckerd College, I always have some pretty good conversation with them because it's kind of something that I'm personally interested in. And I actually wanted to be a marine biologist when I was younger. It is within travel distance of where I live now, so I guess I kind of could go get my education over there. But I don't know if that's going to help me be a better YouTuber. At the end of the day, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Let me hear your thoughts and opinions on learning in the Sarasota and Bradenton area. For me, I got my high school diploma, my GED, at Manatee Technical College. So for me, that may not be the biggest title you can get in this area, but it sure meant a lot to me. Somebody who was forced to leave school in the 9th grade. I returned to the 9th grade 3 times. I wanted to finish high school, but my circumstances were difficult. So for me, getting my GED was a huge accomplishment. And for that, I'll always be thankful to Manatee Technical College in Bradenton. When you go to apply for a job and all you have is 9th grade education, you're never going to get anywhere in life. And it really feels good to know next time that I apply for a job, I'm not clicking like the bottom option of didn't finish high school.